conversation, we're going to be discussing the secrets of animal communication, and we'll be using a National Geographic magazine as a guide. I picked this up a few years ago, actually. Yeah, it says here, display until 11/29/19. We're now in 2023, so this has been out for a while, and I had it. I picked it up actually just checking out at a Publix, and it's a $18 magazine. I'm sorry, $15 in the U.S. magazine, and which is very expensive, but I was intrigued by the title, and I like to have stuff like this around because it just makes me feel smarter to even have it in the house. But it wasn't until recently that I was able to sit down and go through the magazine and read it years later. And I thought that a few of the things that I came across would be really interesting to share with our listeners and just kind of discuss and ruminate on a bit. I think that as pet owners, we have made a conscious decision to try to understand and communicate with our animals as well as we can. We joked in a previous episode about how we talk to them, have conversations with them. And I feel like it's soothing when I just make eye contact and talk to them. But we make it a point to read how they're feeling and to consider how they are affected emotionally, even to the point of making sure we maintain a peaceful environment, because we believe that animals they are essentially like conduits for energetic frequencies. And if we have them in an unstable environment, then we'll have 3 gigantic unstable Dobermans, and we don't want that.
Right. First of all, who would have known that Dobermans are as much of a Velcro dog as they are? I would have never in a million years
So clingy.
guessed how clingy these dogs are. I mean, as we are recording this right now, we have 3 Dobermans within a 5 feet radius right now. 2 of them right under our feet. The other one over here chewing on a bone.
Yeah, you could probably hear it.
It is ridiculous how much human interaction that they need, how much stimulation they need, how much they need to just be around and be in your business. You can't even get up and go to the kitchen. I can't even get up and leave my man cave and go to the kitchen and grab something from the refrigerator without 3 dogs following me to the refrigerator. When I open up the refrigerator, our youngest is addicted to ice. So every time you go into to get some ice, you need to drop an ice cube on the floor for her.
It's part of her routine now.
It's her routine. You go get some ice, you give her you throw the ice on the floor, she picks it up and chews it. Just learning so much about them. Like last night, so my mother had a lazy boy that she used to sit in all the time, and since my mother passed, and we got the Dobermans, Bishop's kind of taking that as his own, so that's his chair, and so it's old. It's old. It's been around for what? 6 years? About 6 years old.
Yeah, that's all.
But you can imagine, it's been 4 years of the 6 has been with Bishop. He just big and lurchy and just it's big.
It's his chair.
It's his chair. So it's got some wear and tear to it. So anyway, the spring was popping out the top, and he was so uncomfortable last night. He just kept on pacing and pacing and pacing. And I'm just like, what is wrong with this dog? But I'm looking, and the spring is popping out, and it's gotten real bad. Like a whole coil.
Yeah, I pointed that out to
you. From the chair was popping out the top.
Yes.
And so I went to the and we were kind of looking around to try to find a used lazy boy for him, but we haven't really found what we wanted, and I wasn't really trying to get rid of his chair because I'm just like,
he loves it.
He loves that chair. So I went and got some wire cutters and cut those springs out, of that were popping out, and yeah, it fixed the whole problem. He just, now he was comfortable. He sat down in his chair, he looking at me crazy.
Yeah.
He went to sleep.
And even without being able to verbally communicate that with us, we knew something was wrong. He's pacing around, and I know all pet owners can relate to that. But I believe that good pet owners actually investigate and try to find out what is happening. Why is my dog behaving in this way, instead of just yelling at them and making them go away? And I think that uninformed pet owners, I'm not going to call them bad pet owners, uninformed pet owners just feel that their feelings and their time and all of that is priority. So it doesn't matter. You're making me uncomfortable. Sit down, get out of my way, get out of my face. And they don't necessarily go and try to investigate and solve the problem. But we did. And once you cut that spring, he was chilling. He was more relaxed.
Right.
But even like on an emotional level. So our oldest daughter, she's 25 years old. She was over yesterday and she was telling a story of how she was spending the night over our house, and she was on the couch. She was sad about something. And Bishop, who she hadn't had a really close relationship with, came up to her and for the first time, like, just put his paw on her. And just kept putting his paw on her chest. Mm-hmm. And she was like, wow, I could tell that he sensed that I was sad and was trying to make me feel better, trying to she felt that he was communicating, it's going to be better, you'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they say Dobermans, that's their way of greeting you by nudging you, or putting their paw on you, or something along those lines. That's their way of greeting their owner. So annoying. You can sit there and you'll be on the couches on your phone or something, or watch TV. But usually it's the phone. It's specifically the phone.
Oh, yeah.
And if they're not getting enough attention, especially Jada, she'll walk up and she got this little nose and will knock the phone out of your hand. Mm-hmm. She'll come up under you and flick her phone up, her nose up, and knock the phone out of your hand. And it's just so annoying. But it's her way of just greeting you, wanting some attention, demanding some attention.
Advocating for herself. Mm-hmm. That's the way she advocates for herself. That's Lyric in the background, arguing with her toy. Let's look at this chapter that I found really interesting in National Geographic. It's entitled Emotion. So it says, for most of the past century, scientists tended to regard animal emotions as quite simple. Animal communication was similarly dismissed as involuntary, capable only of expressing rudimentary internal states. To modern sensibilities, this can seem quite strange, not less because certain involuntary expressions of feelings, whoops of laughter, cries of joy or distress, are such important parts of our own lives. Yet some scientists even considered animals to be unconscious of their own feelings. After all, they lack the language supposedly necessary to transmute emotional impulses into meaningful experiences. Nowadays, the absence of human-style language is not considered a barrier to intelligence. I like that they call it human-style language. Scientists have also started to recognize that animal emotions have much in common with our own. And although animals can communicate about more than emotion, expressions of feelings are essential parts of their inventory. Perhaps the most universal of these expressions are the cries of infants, which are not only biologically difficult to ignore, but also have common acoustic properties shared by other mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians. Some animal mothers even respond to sounds of upset babies belonging to other species. Adult distress can also transcend species boundaries, as in 2013, when the moans of dairy cows whose calves had been taken away unsettled the human residents of a Massachusetts town. Whether such cries are considered involuntary makes them no less poignant. Cows are instructive in another way too. Having evolved under the watchful gaze of predators, they often convey emotion subtly, with only tail flicks or the position of their ears betraying their feelings. Expressions of well-being are also shared across distantly related creatures. Rats laugh while playing, And when they're tickled, their voices are so high pitched, though we cannot hear them. Kia parrots also produce a laughter-like call while playing, either alone or with other parrots. Researchers suspect that it lifts solitary spirits and, when made in group setting, functions like contagious laughter does in people, spreading good feelings among company. This makes me think about a video that I ran across on Instagram the other day. So there was a woman at the zoo, and she was holding an infant, and she was at the gorilla exhibit. So she was holding up her infant in front of the glass, and there was a gorilla sitting right there looking at the baby. And the human mom is like showing, like, you know, her little baby, like the baby maybe was a few weeks old, very small. The gorilla, who was a female, runs off. She runs away. She runs to like the back area and comes out holding her baby and brings it over to the window, to the glass, and holds up the baby to show the woman, the human woman, her baby. Like, how can you...
Like, I got a baby too.
Exactly. That level of connection is highly sophisticated.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to their emotional capacity. And I believe all animals have some emotional capacity.
A mother's pride. That's so crazy. Like, you run off to get your baby, to show your baby. You know what I'm saying? That's just like, I'm a mother too.
Yes. And look at my baby.
That's so dope.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And I like that they...
I hate zoos.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what makes it so disgusting, is that this is a creature or being that's in captivity, enslaved, with her child. They should be swinging through trees. They should have miles and miles and miles of area. But they're stuck in this cage. And I don't care how big it is. The cage could be the size of a, I don't know, just how big can you make it? A football field. That's still not as big as the being in nature. Right. Being in a rainforest or being, wherever else they live. You can't replicate that no matter how hard you try. But yeah, seeing that was just incredible. It was incredibly moving to me. I think I sent it to you and the kids because I was like, wow, this is phenomenal.
I just think that I just can't stand humans and how they do that. Just encage animals like that. Honestly, really, I'm gonna take it one step further. I just feel like research of animals, even in the wild, should be very, very limited. Yeah. Allow them to be who they are and allow their lives to be private, just like our lives are private. I don't need to know. I saw this video that they were doing some research on some silverback gorillas, and they were in the wild somewhere in the jungle, it looked like, and this silverback grabbed this researcher by the ankle. Oh, yeah. And just drug him like 10 feet across the grass and then let him go and just kept walking.
I walked off casually.
But it was a statement.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can mess you up right now if I wanted to. Yeah. But I choose not to. You know what I mean? Because, that gorilla goes gorilla, like Chris Rock would say. That gorilla goes gorilla. Now all of a sudden it's the gorilla's fault. And then humans just break their back to go find this gorilla to take his life because he harmed a human. Like, why are you there?
Why are you there?
Why are you there?
Yeah, it's clearly bothering.
I can understand you research animals for like situations like global warming, or what can we learn from the animals for global warming? What is it doing to the animals for that? Or ensuring that, poachers are, kept away from these animals or something that's going to allow their lives to extend. But other than that,
it
very
should be
specific
done.
reasons.
Yes, very, very ethically, very responsively, very non-invasively. Like as much as we can research without disrupting their environment and having respect for their environment in the same way that we would want someone to have respect for our home. There was a time, well, not there was a time, we're always doing some type of project in our home. We live in our older home. It was built in 1976. And when we moved in 4 years ago, everything was pretty much original. And so we've had to change lots of things. Having contractors in the house, even though they're doing something positive and we need them to do things, is so frustrating. Just having them around, how it affects your routine. And even when they're trying their best to be quiet or, you know, just kind of stay out of your way, you still notice it. And the energy in the house still changes. Mm-hmm. So even just being around and observing and researching, that can be disruptive if it's not done responsibly and ethically. And I know that there are certain parameters or certain rules in place that as time goes on, as we're becoming more aware as a species of animals, where we're approaching it in a better way and considering that. I grew up with birds. Love birds. My father was a huge bird fan. And he was really good at training them, mainly just parakeets. But they would come to him on command and, you know, just really, they were trained. They were well trained. He taught them different tricks, things like that. But now as an adult, I think about just the cruelty of keeping a bird in captivity. And some people even go as far as to clip their wings so they can't fly away.
That's okay.
But again, to my point about not being able to replicate their natural environment, no matter how hard you try, even with a tiny parakeet, if we had a cage the size of our house, that is not the size of the entire sky. It's still a form of captivity. Yes, they have a lot of room, but they're still not free to do what they would naturally do.
Right. I cannot stand circuses and I cannot stand zoos, specifically circuses though. And both of them, really, honestly. But circuses are horrible. And somebody told me the other day that they outlawed animals at circuses. I don't know how
they've
much that is
changed
true.
the laws.
I don't know how much of that is
I haven't
true.
seen elephants and things like that. And, well, we haven't been to circuses for a long time.
Right.
This is before we were delivered. We used to take our kids to zoos. Our youngest is 17 now. We have a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 25-year-old. So in the early days, when they were small children, we would take them to zoos. We would take them to circuses because that's just what you do with your kids. Like you go to zoos and they like to see the animals. But just something about it started to just not feel right to us. I feel like around the same time.
I know exactly when it happened. We took the last zoo we went to. It was when we was living in Chicago. It was at UIC at the Pavilion. They had the circus come through. I'm sorry, the circus. We had the circus come through, and I don't know. It was like a pause in the circus where we could go down and take pictures with this boa constrictor. And I think we still had the Polaroid. Me and the kids had this boa constrictor around our neck. I was like trying to be cool about it, but I can't stand snakes. It was just the weirdest thing ever. But while we were down there, the elephants were down there too. And we were walking by as we were standing in line and elephants walked by. And you could look in their eyes and tell that they were miserable. Just miserable.
Yeah.
Having to put their feet on each other's backs and hold each other's tails and walk around and everybody applaud and all this other bull. Like, come on, man.
Completely unnatural behavior.
Right. These animals are supposed to be in Africa somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like surviving and being with their families and and they already say that, elephants are very in tune with their emotions and they're very close to the same emotions that human beings, have, and you could tell by the look in their eyes that they were just miserable. And I think that was the last time we went to a circus. And I told you, I was like, I'm not ever going back to a circus again.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
And then, we watch a lot of documentaries. So I can't even really remember exactly what this documentary was. But actually, I've seen several documentaries about elephants and the way that they value family. And value is a human term, but I'm going to use it. Value family and the way that they grieve and the way that they celebrate and, just different things like that. And the way that they're affected by death. I feel like there was a documentary where they showed that there was an elephant graveyard and the elephants would come back to the spot where their children were placed or their friends or partners or I don't know what you call it, companions or whatever. And they would go back there and visit and grieve and mourn, very similar to how human beings do. So just learning more about animals and then also just seeing it in real time was something that just made me agree that no, I don't want to participate in this. I don't want to support this. One of our daughters was telling us about a field trip that she had in Chicago at the Lincoln Park Zoo, which is a free public zoo. She went there with a day camp and she said that it was about 90 degrees, summertime Chicago. There was a polar bear. And she said the polar bear was just rolling his head around. First of all, she said it was skinny. It was outside. It was skinny. And the bear was just rolling his head around like just over and over and over again. And the zoo personnel were like, oh, yeah, well, we don't know what's wrong with him, why he's behaving in this way. And my daughter, even at that young age, very compassionate, young woman, very empathetic, maybe she was 7 years old or something, said to herself and came home and said to me, like, well, yeah, he's a polar bear in Chicago in the summertime. That's why he's upset. He's miserable. He's depressed. And it was something that she observed and it was very painful for her to observe. While some folks weren't picking up on that at all. It's just you look at it and you laugh at it like, oh, look at that polar bear acting crazy. When really, we as human beings are crazy to take something from its natural environment and keep it in captivity and then expect it to behave as if it's not in captivity and be happy for the purpose of entertaining us. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it is. It's disgusting. I mean, I remember visiting the same zoo, and this is before we were delivered. Seeing a cheetah or a puma or something of them sorts. It was the cat house at Lincoln Park Zoo. They have a cat house, so you walk in and you see all the cheetahs and different cats that are supposed to be in the wild. And like I said, supposed to be in the wild. There was a cheetah up there it was basically a makeshift. To me, it was just a huge aquarium. It was probably like 20 to 25 feet long, probably 5 to 6 feet wide. All this cheetah could do was pace back and forth. That's all the exercise it got all day. Pacing back and forth from one end to the other, turning around, coming back the other, and doing that all day. And then they had a little hole that he crawled in to go to sleep. And it was just like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
This is terrible. There ain't no reason why this cheetah should be stuck in this box.
Alone.
Alone by itself.
Yeah, in a foreign land with no understanding of why they're even there. With trauma, I'm sure, from being kidnapped. Or even if, let's just say the cheetah or whatever it was born in captivity. I'm a strong believer in that energy passing down, that spirit. It's happened in the Black community. And I can speak to that because I've observed it firsthand, how the trauma of slavery has trickled down from generation to generation. As a proof point, just the way that we discipline our children, the way that we discipline our dogs, things like that, that all stem from the brutality that we experienced during slavery. I know it's multi-layered, but that's certainly one thing that informs that way of, hey, come on, y'all. That's Bishop. I guess Lyric was getting on his nerves or whatever, but every now and then he snaps on her. Come on, y'all. That's not nice. To capture something and assume that it's okay, that they're okay with being captured because they can't tell you with words that they aren't happy, that we've justified as human beings this terrible practice of imprisoning, and that's what it is, essentially, imprisoning living beings. And I think it's mainly because they can't talk and we can't communicate with them.
There's no reason. Okay, let's put it like this. It is 2023, people. There's nothing that we can get from a zoo that we can't get off of YouTube for education. We have drones. We have cameras. We have motion censored cameras. We have all this stuff that we can use.
All sorts of technology.
In fact, they have Netflix, educational movies on Netflix that show the ability to learn from these animals in the wild.
Yes.
Research, same as education. 4 main goals of a zoo, according to Google: conservation, education, recreation, and research. 3 of those 4 should be eliminated. If it is not for the conservation of an animal, that animal should be free. And recreation, man, bump your entertainment.
Yeah.
Go find something else to entertain yourself. Go chase a bird in the sky.
Yeah.
Go get some exercise.
Get
Go
some binoculars and be a bird watcher.
Right.
Something.
But I should not have to go to Lincoln Park Zoo in a 90-degree day.
Or any zoo.
And find a polar bear damn near losing his mind and be like, oh, the polar bear acting crazy. No, the polar bear is crazy because he's not around some ice up in the North Pole where he belongs.
Exactly.
People.
I just think that once we reconcile that, like really come to terms with how cruel that is collectively, it would just make us better humans just in general.
And I'm willing to bet the same people that go to zoos on a regular basis and take their kids to zoos on a regular basis and see these animals in captivity are the same people who have a real warped sense of relationship with their dogs, if they are dogs owners, or they may not even like dogs because there's not enough control over a domesticated dog as it is paying $20 to go see this crazy polar bear because it's behind a cage and it can't hurt you.
Yeah.
So it's a sense of security for you.
It is.
So, which is fine, but those are the same people I feel like have no business at all owning dogs. And I am, I'm not people who don't have a good sense of relationship with animals, period. People who go to like zoos, and the only reason they feel like they can go to a zoo because they feel safe because the animals behind the cage, behind. And I'm not saying you should be walking around Africa, and trying to communicate with the lions or nothing like crazy like that. But if you get entertained by that, that's saying something about you as a person, to me personally.
I just think I kind of disagree with that because I don't want to go so hard on people who are still there, because it just takes time and it takes learning and it takes information and being exposed to information. And that's what platforms like this are for, is to expose people to information. I feel like I was an animal lover my entire life. And there were things that I aligned with that I wouldn't now, just years later with a deeper understanding. Lots of things, including going to zoos. So I wouldn't villainize those people. But what I feel like I hear you saying is that if you are a person who if you're not attuned to being empathetic to animals in general. It's hard to believe that as a pet owner, you're able to connect and be empathetic with that pet.
Right.
As an informed pet owner.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
So I wouldn't just bash them.
I'm bashing them.
No, don't bash them.
I can't bash them.
I wouldn't do that because everybody is on their own journey, and I hate using that term, but everybody is, and you live and you learn, and just like we've lived and we've learned.
That's
and
true.
That's why when I see magazines like this, I pick them up and read them so that I can be better informed.